Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Flash Season 8 review series. And today I am going to be talking about episode 11, Resurrection, which I have just finished watching, and this episode was actually really good. This was really enjoyable to watch, and in my opinion I think this was one of the better ones of Season 8, certainly up there with the Armageddon 5-part special. And we've kind of got an idea of who the main villain is going to be for Season 8, which we'll get into in a moment. And this episode saw the return of a familiar face who officially we haven't actually seen since Season 1. So it's been quite a while. But this character in particular, we've seen a number of different versions of this guy, but we haven't seen him officially, as I mentioned, since Season 1. But he is back, but he's not back in the way you think, which we'll get into in a moment. But as I said, overall, this was a very good episode, and as I said, one of the better ones of Season 8 so far. So I'm going to give a quick recap of what's happened so far, and then we're going to get straight into talking about episode 11. So for the past few episodes, we've been seeing this mysterious black flame going around committing all of these killings and going around killing people. And this particular black flame feeds on people's grief and emotions, kind of like what Darkseid did in Smallville. And we see that this black flame preys upon people's feelings. So, for example, if Barry Allen is in mourning for his mum and dad, then this creature would feed on his grief. And that's what we've been seeing for the past few episodes. And we saw in the last episode, in episode 10, Team Flash tried to capture this black flame. They were unsuccessful. And then we saw at the end, this black flame came to Caitlin Snow's apartment and apparently revealed itself to be none other than Ronnie Raymond, who is the character we haven't seen officially since Season 1. And I mentioned in the last review about the ending that could this creature really be Ronnie Raymond, or could it be this black flame is just pretending to be Ronnie in a way to like trap Caitlin? So that kind of left episode 10 on a cliffhanger, and it was a great setup for episode 11. So, as I said, it's a possibility that it could be Ronnie, but anybody who's followed the Arrowverse shows, and in particular with The Flash, nothing is ever as simple as it seems. So, with that all said, we're going to get straight into it. We're going to talk about episode 11, Resurrection. So, this episode starts off with a flashback from 2012 where we see Ronnie runs into Caitlin in the lab and needs to be treated for an injury. So this is a flashback of the first time that Caitlin and Ronnie have met each other, and we see the two form a connection while talking as she tends to his burn, and they more or less trade flirty banter with each other. And as I said, this is the first time that we actually have seen these two meet each other, because when the Flash started, they were already together. We never really got to see how these two met. So this was actually a real nice treat to go back to the past and pretty much see how this relationship started. And then we cut back to the present, where officially this episode picks up from where we left off at the end of episode 10, where we see the Black Flame talks to Caitlin and she asks to tell her how to save him, and it quickly vanishes. So we saw in this scene the Black Flame was more or less trying to reach out to Caitlin and ask for her help to try and save him, and it looked like it's Ronnie. So very interesting way to kick off this episode. So we had a flashback of how Ronnie and Caitlin met each other, and then we're treated to the present. So all throughout this episode, we kind of like got past scenes and present scenes all meshed together, which was done very well. Hadn't been done like that in a while since the early seasons of Arrow. So then we see in Coast City, Iris has no idea what happened to Tinya's mum and continues to have an attack. Now, throughout the last few episodes, Iris has had this time sickness where, she touches objects and things disappear. And as we saw at the end of episode 10, she touched Tinya's mum and she disappeared. So obviously, Tinya's not very happy about that, which is understandable, and she absolutely flips her lid. And Sue goes to call Barry, but her cell phone quickly disappears due to Iris's temporal energy. Sue tells Tinya to flee. Interesting stuff going on here. We then see Barry and Team Flash go over some additional possible victims of the Black Flame, and they realise that it's possible the killer has been out there much longer than they realise. They start to form a plan, and Caitlin shows up and says she knows the Black Flame wants her, and she also recognises the victims. They're all somehow connected to Caitlin, and then she reveals that the Black Flame is really Ronnie, and he wants her to save him. Caitlin starts sharing the proof that she has that Black Flame is actually Ronnie, while still giving a brief recap of how Ronnie actually died. She also says that she doesn't think that Ronnie is in control, that his death has flooded his brain with essentially grief hormones that has left him craving grief to survive, hence all of the killings. Caitlin also thinks that the device they used initially to separate Ronnie from Stein, the quantum splicer, is what they need to fix him. Barry, of course, is very skeptical, and he goes to talk to Caitlin and tells her not to jump to conclusions and slow down. Even with the science, he is also worried that Caitlin is being manipulated by the Black Flame. Caitlin is still convinced that Ronnie needs their help. She also realises she needs to talk to her boyfriend. Caitlin goes to talk to him and tells him everything. She says they need to stop seeing each other until she saves Ronnie, but Marcus has questions about what will happen when she does. They break up. At Star Labs, Frost talks to Barry, who is still very skeptical and is unsure of how this is going to play out, and he thinks that it is too good to be true. Frost is a little skeptical too, but she has Caitlin's back and reminds Barry that he'd do the same if it was Iris. Allegra walks in and sees Chester livestream the technology for the splicer to the internet. She has major concerns and suggests he moderate what he's sharing, but Chester disagrees. He thinks information should be widespread and free. Allegra points out that people could try to resurrect the dead, and that's something that people should not be doing. Chester eventually agrees and shuts off the live stream. Elsewhere, Cecile can hear Black Flame asking where is she. Barry comes to Cecile's aid and she tells him that the fire talked to her but is actually not there. She confirms that she could sense Ronnie, but that he doesn't want to be brought back. He just wants to die in peace. Barry and Cecile tell Caitlin, but she doesn't believe them and says she will help him herself if they won't. We then see, in the present, in Coast City, Sue and Iris are back at the hotel, and Iris's condition is getting worse. Tinya shows up, making accusations, and she attacks Iris, using her powers on her to make Iris vanish before leaving. In Central City, Team Flash decides how they're going to end Ronnie's pain and contain the Black Flame. They can't even try the splicer because Ronnie is just ready to go on. Frost goes to talk to Caitlin. We then treated to another flashback, this time from 2013. Ronnie and Caitlin are getting ready to go on a getaway for their 1-year dating anniversary, and they ended up stranded in a snowstorm. Turns out Caitlin had planned to propose to Ronnie, and he also planned to propose to her too. They both got on their knees and both say yes to each other's proposal. We're then taken back to the present, where Frost tells Caitlin the plan and brings Caitlin the splicer anyway. They go to find Ronnie back where they got engaged, and that is where Ronnie Black Flame is at. But there are also people camping there at the time, and the Black Flame appears. Team Flash figures out where Black Flame is and prepare to go through their plan. The Flash arrives and sends the campers away, and then prepares to draw Black Flame into the sphere. However, as he's doing so, Frost and Caitlin show up, so Frost appears, freezes the sphere, letting Black Flame escape. Caitlin speaks to the flame, and it starts to take form into a person. She puts a splicer on it, and it turns into Ronnie, though he collapses, exhausted. Back at Star Labs, Ronnie rests and recovers, though there is some abnormal brain function. Caitlin assumes he will be fine. Barry apologizes for doubting Caitlin, and everyone is happy to have Ronnie back. Cecile doesn't understand why she got things so wrong with her powers and apologizes. Later, we see Sue shows up at Barry's house to tell that Iris is gone. And at Star Labs, Caitlin goes to check on Ronnie, but he's not in his bed. And then all of a sudden, the lights start to go out, and she follows the darkness and finds Ronnie looking out the window, looking very creepy. Ronnie turns around, and we see his eyes are black, and he reveals his true form and reveals himself to be none other than Deathstorm, as we see him take the form of a flaming skeleton. And that's how we end episode 11. Overall, very good episode. Love the big reveal at the end with Ronnie turning out to be Deathstorm. We kind of all saw that coming, but I still think the reveal was very well done and very cool. And it looks like Deathstorm is going to be the main villain for season 8, and I'm really looking forward to it. I like the way they did the flashbacks with Ronnie and Caitlin in the past, and then we get the present as well. I thought that was very well done. And as I mentioned earlier, we haven't seen anything like that since Arrow in the early seasons. But overall, I thought this was very enjoyable, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen next. And especially with Iris disappearing as well, this is going to be quite a chaotic season 8, I think. But I'm really looking forward to seeing where all of this heads to. So that's going to be it for me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What was your thoughts on episode 11? Did you enjoy it? What was your thoughts on Ronnie coming back from the dead and revealing himself to be Deathstorm? Do you think Deathstorm could be the main villain? Was you impressed with the reveal? And also, what about Iris disappearing? How do you think Barry's going to get her back? And also, with Deathstorm now in the picture, is it possible that we might see the In Blackest Night event play out in the Arrowverse with old characters coming back from the dead? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Flash Season 8 review series, where I am going to be talking about episode 12, which I'm very much looking forward to talking about, especially with the way this episode ended. Looks like it's going to be a very good one, and it's going to be a hell of a ride, and I can't wait to see how all of this is going to play out. So until next time, take care everybody and stay safe, and once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.